Uh, Great. Thank you, Micah. Thank you, Eve. Welcome, everybody. My name is Matt Rocco. I'm president of the association. I'm traveling today over on the west coast of Florida, but this is a very important webinar, and I wanted to come on and just welcome the group. Um, for our manufacturers that are joining us today, if you're not so familiar with the award and the process, you're gonna see it's all about process. And there's so many benefits to going through this award, which I know Mike is going to go through a ton of different things. So I'm not going to dive into that because that'll take away from his presentation. But importantly too, for our non-manufacturers that are joining us, our partners and our great resources, this is an excellent opportunity to really learn about how this could benefit the manufacturers that you're working with, um, which you'll see from the presentation, and then from the manufacturers that are with us. I would even go so far as saying, after you see the presentation today and learn more about it, nominate your suppliers down in South Florida that are manufacturers, because when you see what goes into this, you realize that having them go through the process and them getting better is only benefit to you. And I know, Micah, we're going to be joined today from two of the winners from last year, Horbiger in Pompano Beach and Fortress for Anchors in Fort Lauderdale. So you're going to hear specifically from them on their experience going through this. So I just want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for being here. This is a very integral part of what we do for the award process and really educate the community. We were on a call earlier this morning with the South Miami-Dade Economic Development Council, and kudos to them because they really understand what we're trying to do, and they're big supporters of this, and they were educating some manufacturers and the community down in South Miami-Dade as the importance to this. And it's really an important part of processing for the manufacturer. So thank you again, Eve. Thank you for your efforts in getting folks here. Thank you, Micah, as always, for leading us on the award and the process. And I'll stop there and let you continue.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Matt. Great introduction. Just for those of you who don't know who I am, I know there's a lot of names here that I don't know on this call, so I'll do a brief introduction of myself and then I'll get right into the process. I'll go off video at that time, but at least you have a face with a name now. My name is Micah Dougherty. I'm a senior business advisor for the South Florida Manufacturers Association. And one of my roles with the organization is to be the lead examiner for the Manufacturer of the Year Awards process. This process is it's a data-driven process. I always like to say it's not a attaboy process, and you'll hear a little bit more from two of our previous winners in a little bit about their experience throughout the process, and I think they've both been through the process a couple of times. So, if for the manufacturers on this call, if you don't win, don't be discouraged. It's just an opportunity to participate again and get more feedback and look for ways to drive yourself forward to get better. Um, I've been uh, I've been in manufacturing for oh God, over 35 years. It chokes me to say that, and now it really makes me feel old. I guess that's why I have the title senior business advisor. But I've been in manufacturing for a very long time. I grew up outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so I grew up in the steel industry, and materials engineering is my background. I've been with the organization for about 6 years, and I've been part of the Manufacturing Extension Partnership uh, organization, Florida Makes, and previously the Florida MEP for quite some time. I've been in management, I've been in operations, not too much I haven't done. I guess, as Matt likes to say, I'm a bowler, an archer, and everything else. But I really enjoy this process. I enjoy seeing what the manufacturers get out of this process, and I really enjoy watching their growth and watching the change in not only the organizations, but the people within the organizations, because it's really a good personal development experience as well as a developmental experience for the companies themselves. So without further ado, I'm going to go off video here and I'm going to get right into the presentation. Okay, so what is the manufacturer, what is the SFMA's Manufacturer of the Year Awards process? So, simply put, it's about manufacturing excellence. This awards process is actually fashioned after the Baldrige Quality Award of Excellence, which is a national award that is presented to all businesses, not just manufacturers. And it is conducted by the National Institute for Standards and Technologies. And it's also the only award handed out to manufacturers, because there is a manufacturing component to the Baldrige. It is the only award that is handed out to manufacturers by the President of the United States. Their process is a little bit longer than ours. It's about 7 to 10 days. There is an examiner team that goes through various aspects of the business, and then those various aspects, criteria, categories are all graded by an examiner team. And then, of course, those companies with the highest scores receive the award. That is pretty much the same process we do, except we're not 7 to 10 days. I'll get into how our process works. But it is a very data-driven process. Myself and an examiner team will be evaluating each of the nominees who uh, accept a nomination to participate in this process. And I think it's really a good growth opportunity. So it really all begins with your nomination. Some of you on this call are on this call because you've been nominated, maybe even accepted the nomination and want to learn more. Some of you may have not accepted the nomination and want to know more. So we're going to get into that. The nomination period is already open. It will close at the end of November. Now, the nomination can be, you can nominate yourself if you want to go through the process. The SFMA may nominate you. Affiliates of the SFMA may nominate you. And look, some of you could have been nominated, as Matt made it a point. You could have been nominated by, a customer or a vendor. So, and it's open to any manufacturer, and you have to be a manufacturer, not with a manufacturing NAICS code that is designated as a manufacturer by the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. But you have to be a manufacturer with your facility located here in the 8 county region that the SFMA covers, which is basically everywhere from Vero Beach all the way down to the Keys. So if you just picture those counties along the coastline there, and including Okeechobee, which is a little bit inland, those are the 8 counties that we cover. So as I mentioned, the nomination period is open. There's various ways that you could be nominated. And first and foremost, though, you have to choose whether you're going to accept or decline it. If you decline it, it's understood. If you accept the nomination, however, you will receive the welcome letter from Lizbeth at the SFMA, and it will include a link for the organizational profile. The final date to submit these profiles is the end of the year, December 31st. The organizational profiles will be reviewed by myself and make sure that all of the information is there that the examiner team and I will be looking for. The examiner team will also have access to the organizational profiles, by the way. Why is this important? Uh, the organizational profile is important because there's a lot of companies that we don't know that come into this process. And it's really to give us a better insight as to who the company is. It helps us formulate, some of the questions, because actually some of the things that are in the organizational profile, you will be asked again during the examination process. This information is kept confidential. It is not shared publicly, other than just amongst the examiner team and myself. But we use this data as a tool. We don't look for financials. We don't care about financial information. And we really don't want to get into the nitty gritty of any proprietary information. We don't really need to know who your customers are or who your vendors are. It's if you choose to disclose that, that's fine, but it won't be shared with anybody. But we don't need to know those things. It's more about the process, and I will be talking about what that means in a little bit. So I just mentioned this, and I just mentioned this just to reiterate it. The organizational profile is a guide. And if it's completed to its fullest, you will be moved on to the virtual interview phase, which is where the examiner team and I will then, have an opportunity to ask more pointed questions towards some of the categories that we'll be looking at, which I'll also discuss here shortly. So here's a little bit of the information that you will see on this organizational profile. Of course, basic contact information, address, phone numbers, contacts, so forth. What's really important is how many employees do you have at your facility here in South Florida? Some of you may have multiple facilities, that could be, throughout the state of Florida or even throughout the US. We're only examining the facility, the manufacturing facility here in South Florida. Obviously we're not going to travel to, Texas or Tampa or Tallahassee or anything. So when we set this up, everything is all the companies, all the nominees are grouped according to the employee headcount at that facility. So, and that's really where the separation comes. So if you are a company that has, let's say, 150 employees, but half of them are, out of state and the other half are here, two different facilities, we're not really looking at the other facilities. So we don't need to know that total global number. We just need to know how many people do you have employed here. That's really important. Uh, Other things that we're going to look at: mission, vision, and your core values. I can't stress this enough, and I think those of you on this call that know me know where I stand with this. Mission, vision, core values is the backbone of any organization. Manufacturing, banking, insurance, real estate, doesn't matter. The mission, your mission is, why do you exist? Why does your company uh, do what it does? There had to be a purpose. The vision is, for a lack of better terms, what do you want to be when you grow up? I say that facetiously, but it's really, where do you want to take the company? That's the vision. And then core values, it's those values that you live by. As an organization, the employees of the organization, how you want to be viewed in the marketplace by not only your customers and your vendors, but also by society and by your stakeholders. Uh, Technology. There's, no matter the size of the company, there's some amount of technology and innovation in every organization. And we need to understand this. We're rapidly, as not just as a country in a manufacturing community, but the world is rapidly moving towards what we call Industry 4.0. There's a lot of automation, a lot of technology being used. But I also want to stress, innovation doesn't always mean it has to be technology. It's really thinking outside the box, doing something different, separating yourself, from your competition. Strategic challenges and advantages. What makes you unique? And what keeps you up at night? What are those challenges that your company faces? Because this becomes important, because we're going to look at this. These may be areas of opportunity that the examiner team and I will examine and evaluate and make recommendations at the end of the day, on how you face these challenges. What do you do? What does your company make? What industries, and types of customers you serve? Not necessarily the customer names, but if you're in aerospace, that simply put, we're an aerospace company. If you're a machine shop, you could, service, medical, automotive, once again, aerospace. There's a lot of things that you could be doing. Strategic planning. Uh, you know, we talk about mission, vision, and core values. Well, the strategic plan is the roadmap. It's a roadmap for where your company is at and where you want to take it over a period of time, whether it's a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. You know, what are you doing, to get there? What are your action plans? And once again, addressing strategic challenges and risks to the business, looking at customer markets and how you penetrate, new markets and new industries. So very strategic planning is something else I'm really, really big on, and there will be a focus. Trust me, I'm hard about it, and I think the two gentlemen that are going to talk in a little bit will tell you about that. How do you measure business performance? Uh, what are your KPIs? Do you have any KPIs? Because if you're not measuring the business, you're really just practicing. You have a starting point. You need to know where you're going. You need to have those goals, and they need to be communicated. They need to be shared. And they need to be visible. How do you benchmark your business? I get a lot of, well, our business is unique. Nobody else does what we do. Doesn't mean that you can't benchmark against something. You can benchmark against yourself, against, historical data. You could benchmark, certain aspects of the business against the way other businesses are doing it. Workforce and human resources is a great example. Leadership is a great example. How are you benchmarking? How do you invest in your workforce? Do you do training? What are your safety standards? What is the level of communication? Is it one-on-one? A lot of things go on with the workforce. I talked about risks to the business. What are they? How do you address those? Supply chain management is big, but not only your external supply chain, look at the internal supply chain as well. Larger organizations, you're moving product from one department to another. How are those departments communicating with each other and collaborating to make sure that the customer is getting exactly what they ask for? And then, of course, there's a regulatory environment, industry certifications like, ISO, SQF, which is, safe quality foods. The FDA is a big one for medical. And what's coming more and more prevalent now is cybersecurity. That's coming down the pike really fast. So I mentioned a little bit about the groupings. Last year we had 5 categories or 5 groups of companies. This was last year. It doesn't mean it's going to be the same this year. This is kind of a fluid target, if you will. But the group 1 was 1 to 25 employees. Group 2 was 26 to 75. Group 3 was 76 to 130. Group 4, 131 to 199, and Group 5 was 200 plus. The official count, you see, we had 7 Group 1s, 5 Group 2s, 4 Group 3s, 5 Group 4s, and 5 Group 5s. Those numbers would be pretty much about the same. We like to have around 5 companies in each of the groups. So last year's winners and runners up, I won't go through all of the names, but I will recognize the winners. Group 1 was Fortress Marine Anchors, and Chris Albert is on this call. He's going to give us a little testimonial about his experience with the process. CM Insteel Fabricators in Miami was the winner of Group 2. Slate Solutions in Davie was the winner of Group 3. Hog Technologies up here in the Treasure Coast in Stewart was the winner of Group 4. And Horbigger in Pompano Beach was the winner of Group 5. And Eric is also on this call, and he's going to give us a little testimonial about his experience going through the process. And to that point, that keyed it right up. So, Eric, I have your name on first. Welcome. I'm glad you were able to join the call today. Chris, you as well. Glad you were able to come on here and say a few words. Eric, I'll start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in going through the Manufacturer of the Year Awards process and what it meant for you and Horbigger?
Yeah, absolutely. So good morning. Still morning, a few more minutes. My name is Arek Dirdu. I'm the president of Horbigger Corporation of America here in Pompano. So as Mike mentioned, this is not the first time we went through this process. We've been in the local community since 70s. But if I would have to kind of summarize pretty quickly the benefits that we've seen from our side, I would have to divide them into, let's say, 3 sections. Yeah. One of them is the structure, how the whole assessment and review is organized into, because it covers anything from your strategy, leadership, all the way through your customer satisfactions, employees, all the way down to the operations. So it kind of gives you a holistic overview how your operation works and where you have room for improvements, and of course the areas that you excel. The second thing is the feedback session after the whole event is finished. I think we all always are looking for a feedback. We like to hear the great things that we do, but again, receiving at the end of the day constructive feedback to see where we can improve our operations. I think this is always a win-win for anybody, because that's basically what we are craving for. And I would say the last but not the least, especially if you win that Manufacturer of the Year event, I mean, is your employee engagement and satisfaction. I mean, for us, or for me personally, I think sitting with my team during the recognition event and the final announcement, and when my team heard their name that they won, I think this is second to none. Seeing the employees happy, and most importantly, acknowledgement from external party that they do a great work, instead of only hearing from internal management group. I think this you cannot get anything better. So I would say from my side, those three main things are, I mean, absolute justification why we do those things and why we participated from our side.
Thank you, Eric. Great testimonial. And from my side, there's also a lot of satisfaction in once again seeing all of these companies go through the process, getting to know everybody a little bit better and know your organizations, and really just being here to be able to help you guys. I mean that I get more satisfaction out of that than I can actually even elaborate on. Chris, how, we had Horbiger as the group five, the big dog in a group. Well, you guys were in the group one and you won it last year. So, and you participated a couple of times. Tell us what your experience is and how this has really affected you and your organization.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'll say is this: when we first participated, and prior to that, when I first took over this position, my experience was in the military. I had been in academia for a little bit. I had been in media, and I had been in bodybuilding. And here's the thing: I didn't have a manufacturing background. So when we joined SFMA, and when we heard about this process, it was like a huge solution had just been put in my lap. And when we were going through that process the first time, it really outlined the things that we needed to be doing. Micah was talking about mission, vision, and values. And when the first time we were going through this process, I'm like, okay, we make anchors, and Micah and his team, when we went through that process, they're like, that's not good enough. You have to really hammer down on mission, vision, and values. And same thing with benchmarking, same thing with all these different things. It got me, as somebody who didn't have a strong manufacturing background, as somebody who was very new to this, to open my mind up. And going through that process the first time was like getting tens of thousands of dollars worth of consulting for absolutely free, or for the cost of membership in the SFMA, which is pretty much nothing. So it was absolutely awesome. That first year we didn't win. We were able to put so many improvements into place. We're able to hammer out our process, put the company into so much of a better position. And then over the year following, we really worked on those improvements, and we were able to get into a position to win last year. And even though we won last year, we're still working with Micah on these improvements. We're still working on making sure that Fortress is getting better and better every month and every year from hereafter. And the reason I'm telling you guys this is because I know there's somebody in the audience sitting there and saying, "Oh God, I don't think I'm good enough for this. I don't think my company's good enough for this." You need to put that to the side and really participate in this process and get the most out of being down here in South Florida, where we've had these amazing resources. The SFMA in Florida makes have been so great for us. I can't tell you how much I credit Micah and his team and Matt and the SFMA for helping us and helping us to really get in a position to be better and to really improve this company. And I highly recommend this process. One thing I will say, when you guys are going through your profiles, you really need to fill those out and you need to be honest about where you're at. Don't just run through it and just put, no answer or whatever. Try to really think about where you're at. Try to be honest about it. That gives the examiner team the best foot forward in trying to help you, because that's what this is about. It's not even really about the award itself. It's about how you can improve. And so, Micah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this today.
Thank you, Chris. Great testimonial from you as well, and you're absolutely right, Chris. I hear that a lot, and actually have a slide on it. There's a lot of companies that feel that, well, we're not ready to participate in this. If you feel that you're not ready to participate, you really are ready to participate because you recognize yourself that you have some deficiencies. So, why not have a team of outsiders come in and take a look at your operations, at your process, and make some recommendations on how to improve upon them. Because that's really what this is all about. I mean, whether you go home with, the award or not is irrelevant. Everybody that participates really is a winner because they get this, assessment, which is, I don't know, roughly 12 to 15 pages long. And I'm more than happy. I did it with both of these gentlemen as well as a lot of the other participants from last year. I go in person, after the awards dinner, start scheduling the appointments, and I'll sit down with the company and the team and go over everything and make sure that there's a full understanding of what we're looking at. And I think that's really important because it's only going to make you better in the long run. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. These were great testimonials. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to everybody on this call about that. Moving on, I'm going to take a pause. Are there any questions I can answer at this point before I get into more specifically what the process is?
Micah, real quick question for you for maybe some of the non-manufacturers that are joining us. If they're sitting back thinking, what type of manufacturer should I nominate for this award? What would you say?
Any.
There you go. Yep.
It's the range of manufacturers that we've had in this process, Matt, as you know, are vast. I mean, here we have, and we have two great examples here. We have one company that takes aluminum extrusions and creates anchors out of them which are great anchors, by the way. I'm going to go ahead and plug Fortress for a minute. They're great anchors, and there's some great stories behind Fortress. But we have a company such as that, and then we have Eric's company and Horbiger on the other side that they have multiple facets. There's a lot of technology in there. They're making valves and systems for oil and gas pumping. And Eric, you could correct me if I'm wrong on some of the things I'm saying there, but you have two completely different industries competing in this. So and if you look at over the years, it's been a very, very wide range of participation in companies. Was there somebody in the chat, Eve? Did I see something pop up because I'm on full screen here?
Yeah, Doug has his hand raised.
Okay, Doug.
Hi, thank you. My question is, you mentioned that when kind of talking about how this was fashioned after the Baldrige Awards, excuse me, that there are certain NAICS codes that it covers. I got the impression that it wasn't all of the manufacturing codes, but only certain ones, or is it anything in the 31 to 33 category?
It's anything from the 31 to 33 category, and also it's inclusive of a few other categories. I think there are some NAICS codes that NIST has recently designated as manufacturing for like distribution and warehousing, logistics, the maintenance and repair for aircraft, the MROs, they are included in manufacturing now. So there is a broad range. I do look at, that's actually one of the questions. It is on the organizational profile, by the way. If you know your NAICS code, please include it. I usually validate that. If you do not have a manufacturing NAICS code, but you are in fact a manufacturer, I will help you get that manufacturing NAICS code. It's a simple process. So one, not only so you can participate, but that also opens a lot of doors for your company for grant availability and funding for the manufacturing sector.
Is there a list of those additional codes that you could share?
Yes, if you drop your email address or or maybe we can send this out to everybody. Eve, I think you have everybody's email addresses. I can get that list to you. I do have that. There are actually quite a few additional ones. I know Steel Service Centers are in it. I think that's like a 423. But those are actually specific NAICS codes where the regular manufacturing is the 31 to 33. But the other ones, there's like specific NAICS codes and I'll have to give you the list, but I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. What does your company do, Doug, by the way?
So we're actually Career Source Broward. So we provide HR support services for companies, training grants, things like that at no cost.
Okay. My apologies. Yeah, no,
No, it's fine.
we'll definitely get those NAICS codes to you, and maybe I'll even, I don't know if I can drop them into the chat at the end of this or not. I think it might be easier just to email it to everybody.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. So Doug brought up a good point. We're fashioned after the Baldrige Quality Award of Excellence. So here are some of those categories: leadership and strategy, customer focus, technology and innovation, measurement, workforce, and operations. These are the 6 categories that the examiner team and I will be looking at. We'll be looking at specific criteria within each of these categories upon which the nominees will be judged. So leadership, what does the leadership category look like? So I really just kind of made these bullet points. I mean, they're obviously going to be more detailed, but right at the top of the list: mission, vision, core values, communication, accountability, mentoring and being mentored, roles of organizational leadership, legal and ethical behavior, risk and succession planning, environmental impact, and the strategic planning process. All very important. And if you look at those, it doesn't matter if you're a manufacturer or not. These are important in every type of business. Customer focus. We look at the culture of the customer within the organization. If you choose to go through the process, by the way, I'll make this clear. You're going to get really, it's like an open book test. You'll see the exact questions, pretty much the exact questions anyways, that we're going to be asking. I mean, we may not come right out and ask that question, but these are the things that we're looking for. So you'll have a little explanation of all of these topics. Culture of the customer, voice of the customer satisfaction. How do you define your customers and your markets that you're participating in? Your customer engagement. And just like supply chain, you have an internal and an external customer. What does that engagement look like as a process? Accountability for the customer, for market growth, and really understanding your competition and what makes you different from your competition. Technology and innovation. Innovative thinking is a process. Once again, innovation does not have to be, having a robot, or some type of automation. It's really thinking outside of the box. How does the innovation and technology play a role in enhancing the customer value? Importantly, strategic planning process should include innovation and technology in the business. There should be a plan to start moving towards, this technology and innovation. What is the role that it plays in collecting data? Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is big. For those of you on this call that have government contracts or are involved in the military, I'm telling you, it's coming. They've been talking about it for years, but it's finally here. It's coming. They're going to be holding much more. They're going to be holding everybody's feet to the fire that that deals with government contracts. And how does technology and innovation play a role in supporting employee functions? This comes into communication. This comes into production. This comes into, the gathering of data and information and the transfer of knowledge. How does technology and innovation play a role in that? Measurement. Once again, my favorite saying, if you're not measuring it, you're just practicing. Simple as that. You got to measure what's important. You know, understanding, when you build a strategic plan, you're going to build your KPIs at the strategic level. That's really what's important. These KPIs should be driving your business. They need to be measured, monitored, adjusted. Actions need to be taken when, you're falling short and also when you're exceeding them. Because if you're exceeding your KPIs on a regular basis, okay, there's a reason. You're obviously something's happening in the process. You're doing it, either you set the standards too low, or the process has changed and you're doing things better. So make your adjustments. That's part of the management of the KPIs. Benchmarking, benchmarking measurement is important. That's what some of these industry standards are for. Um, Communication of the performance. Can't stress this enough. There's no sense in having KPIs if you're not communicating them. They need to be discussed, evaluated, visible, and even better if you can make them real time to make real time decisions on the shop floor or in the office, in the field. That's the best way that you could do it. This is creating organizational knowledge. What are you doing with this knowledge? Are you using this for continuous improvement processes? Are you improving the business, simply put? And validating the data that's collected. Is it accurate? If you're just writing it down in a logbook, it may not be as accurate as scanning it or having something that is automated on the machines or on the operating equipment that's giving you real-time data. The workforce, measuring employee happiness. Can't stress that enough either. Most employees don't leave jobs because of pay. They leave jobs because they're not happy. There's something they're not happy about, and it's not always the pay. So think about that. How do you measure that? What does that process look like? How does the organization manage and understand its workforce capabilities and capacity? What is the process for recruiting and onboarding? Workplace health and safety. How do you communicate with the workforce to drive performance? So annual reviews, semi-annual reviews, do they have all the data that they need, to perform their job functions? Very important. Workforce development. I wish I had the exact numbers on this, but training is such a big piece of business, and it's not just manufacturing. It's all businesses fall very short on workforce development and getting their employees pushed to the next level. And that kind of ties into the employee happiness, because sometimes if employees are stale and they're not challenged and they're not given the opportunity for growth, they're going to look outside of the organization and go someplace else. In workforce engagement, this is a two-way street. How engaged, is the leadership with workforce, but then also how engaged is the workforce with the organization itself? And finally, operations. Supply chain management, once again, internal and external. How are you measuring that? What does that process look like? How do you manage your supply chain? Do you grade your vendors? Is pretty important as well. Do you help your vendors if they're falling short? Meeting customer and market requirements. Really operations needs to have that understanding as well, not just on the sales side. Everything that flows down from that sales order needs to be communicated and worked with at the operational level as well. Managing internal and external resources. Once again, it's kind of like the supply chain management. You got to look at both sides of it. Continuous improvement. I'm a big continuous improvement guy. Have been for 30 plus years in industry. Always looking, you're never going to be, you may be the best, but there's still a time, there's still opportunities to continue to push forward and improve and stay ahead of the game. Cost recognition. Look, if you're making something, bottom line, you got to know if you're making money or not. You need to understand that sorry. You need to understand that the full scope of what's happening from a cost perspective. Looking at the man hours, looking at materials, everything. Operations and revenue recognition, kind of hand in hand with that. If you have things going on in operations, are you accounting for all of that, within the cost? And of course, business continuity and risk. And there's a lot of risk here in Florida. We know that. We've been living it for the last couple of months. I forgot your name. The young lady at the beginning of the call said, how do we get out of this Hurricane of the Month club? Well, the hurricanes are a risk. We need to understand that. How do we keep our businesses running and recover, after, something like a natural disaster? But it doesn't stop just at hurricanes. There's a lot of things that are risk to the business. Market conditions, inflation, changes in the government, supply chain. They need to recognize these risks and need to have action plans in place to be able to really address it and continue to move the business forward. So I keep talking about process. I think you all have it now. I'm not talking about your manufacturing process. I'm talking about a decision. How do what is your process for moving the company forward? How do you get from point A to point B within each of these pieces of criteria in these categories? That's really what we're looking for. So how do we score this? Well, there are 6 categories. In this year's competition, there's going to be 44 pieces of criteria that the examiner team and I will be looking at. Under each of these pieces of criteria, there are 3 components to them. That means that every examiner is going to have 132 scores for your business. And I think that comes up to, I don't have the total here. So what is that? 6 times 132, roughly 700 scores per company, let's say. So when I say it's data driven, it's data driven. So, it's just that simple. And I don't think anybody from Kimry is on this call, but they'll attest to it. They were the winners 2 years ago, but the year before they lost by 1 point. Can you imagine how hard it is to lose by 1 point in this examination? But it happened. And trust me, I scrutinized those scores because I wanted to make sure there wasn't a mistake. And sure enough, but the president at the time made a comment and he said, we were 1 point short. We just weren't good enough. So, and they made improvements and won the next year. Any questions on scoring or on these categories?
Hey, Micah, I've got a question for Chris and Eric. Because I could see some companies on a call thinking, oh my God, this is way overwhelming, daunting. We're just, I don't want to go through it. What for Chris and Eric, if you all did not go through the manufacture work process, where do you think your business might be today?
I mean, I can answer that. I think we'd be lost, honestly. Like I said to you before, we I didn't have much of a manufacturing background at all. What this process did for me, they don't hold your hand through this or anything like that, but what it does is it provides you a structure for the things that you need to be paying attention to, because the fact is you don't know what you don't know, right? And that's a big danger in business. If you're ignoring something that could potentially put you out of business, maybe not now, maybe we're talking 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if you're ignoring things that will build longevity in your business, which I think this process does a great job of pulling the curtain back on, then you could find yourself being painted into a corner, or eventually be put in a position where your company's not going to be there anymore. And so I think, again, to answer your question, we'd be completely lost. I think this process put us on such a better path than what we were on.
I think for us, from Horbiger point of view, it might be a little bit different now because, of course, we are in a large category and we are part of the, a multinational company. But as I mentioned initially, we've been around since the 70s and we've been collaborating with SFMA for many, many, many decades. So, of course, at some point, some years ago, we were pretty much in a similar situation like many of you, one of the smaller companies. And honestly, I don't recall how many times we participated, but it was multiple times over the years. So every single time we had the benefit. And of course, we draw some specific conclusions from those things, and then we improve our processes and operations and everything else. So for us, even though we are big right now, but we also started some years ago small, and the whole process helped us tremendously as well.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good question, Matt. Anybody else? Sergio, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question for Eric. And being part of a bigger company, one of the questions that I had is, how do you reconcile the corporate processes and programs with this assessment? Because normally a bigger company will have something in place that is directing, I guess, the strategy and many of the programs, processes, initiatives. And how do you reconcile those two? Because one thing that I don't want to do is to add more load to the team when they're working on corporate initiatives and local initiatives and all that.
But you don't. And it's interesting because we had exactly the same discussion when Micah was here and we did our feedback session. Of course, being part of the corporate structure, you're sometimes limited maybe when it comes to the vision and strategy. But you also, at least for us, we are a standalone unit where, yes, we have some limitations maybe on some of the processes, but we also have quite a bit of a freedom that we can embrace locally. Now, when it comes to the process itself, the tendency is for companies to feel, hey, I have to go through a bunch of interviews, having people in here, virtual interviews. It's puts too much pressure, maybe too much demand on my team. Reality is this whole process is very smooth. It doesn't really take that much time. And regardless if you're part of the corporate structure or you're a standalone unit, you still should have, as any company of any size, those basic structures. Yeah, you need to have a vision, you need to have a mission statement, and so, because this is what's going to help you grow. Bigger companies, it's probably more elaborated, the mission and vision statement. Smaller companies might be a little bit smaller, but that should not, from my point of view, put too much pressure on your existing team to develop something locally. And you don't have to have anything local. Yeah, you can take whatever your corporate guys tell you and just embrace it. But make sure it's visible and it's clearly communicated through your organization.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you, Eric. Very, very good assessment on that. I couldn't have said it better myself. Any additional questions before I move on? Okay, I'm going to dive a little bit. Oops. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the scoring now. So I talked about the three elements that are kind of part of the scoring and what we look at on each piece of criteria in the categories. They are approach and deployment, integration, and learning. What does all of this mean? So approach and deployment, simply, I put it very simple terms. Do you have a process? And how do you apply that process throughout the organization? That's really what we're looking at. Doesn't have to be a good process. I mean, that's the area, that you could look at improving the process, but it's really, do you have that? And the deployment is like, once again, is, making sure that how are you applying that process throughout the organization? Integration. I'm going to read this right off of here because I love the definition. Integration is defined as the harmonization of plans, processes, information, resource decisions, workforce capacity and capability, actions, results, measures, and analysis to support the key organization-wide goals. Simply put, harmonization is a great word, because the integration is it in the blood? Is this process in the blood of everybody? And that's, everybody needs to understand where the business is at today and where the business needs to go. Doesn't necessarily mean you're sharing financial information with, the guy that's operating the machine, but everything that he does or she does ultimately impacts that, that final bottom line to the business. And that's what's important, is really understanding how all of this comes together, this harmonization. And last but not least, hey, it's great to have a process. It's great that it's integrated. Now, what are you doing with all of this knowledge, the skills, the data that you have collected during this time? And so it's really, are you using this to move the company forward? And simply put, that's the learning aspect of it. You want to make sure that, don't be measuring for the sake of measuring, as I mentioned in, a few slides ago. If you're collecting data, do something with it. Don't let it sit in a box somewhere. Make sure that you're moving the company forward. So the components, each one of these components are scored 1 to 5. 1 basically meaning you have the very bare minimum or potentially no process at all. 5 means you're the benchmark. You're doing something so great that the examiner team and I are going to come in and say, we really like what you're doing, and everybody else needs to see what you're doing, and they should be doing it just like you. So that's the two ends of the spectrum. Everything else kind of falls in between. There's a little bit of, subjection there, if you will. But the reality, I hear a lot of, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying ISO is bad or any industry certifications are bad, because they're structure. But they're nothing special at the same time when it comes to this, comes to the organization. You're doing something that a lot of other people are doing. So that kind of puts you in the middle. So I hope this makes sense, because I think this is important for anybody who's going to participate to understand this. I'm a tough cookie. I think some of the examiners that are on this call, I don't give too many 5s, because, and I've been doing this for a while, so I have a little higher standard. But being a benchmark is really where you want to get to. You want to get to that point to where you want everybody to look up at you and say, I want to be just like them. I want to do the things that they're doing to get their organization going in the right direction. So I hope this scoring makes sense. Eve, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because I think you told us this before, but for the good of the group, how many 5s have you ever given?
Me?
Yes.
I've given a few. I mean, I can say I've given a few. I can't put the exact number on it, but I will say that I can say Horbiger got some 5s, probably from me. They might have gotten a 5 or 2 from me. Hog Technologies, who was the winner in the group 4 last year, got a lot of 5s from everybody, because they were one of the just best cultured companies that I've seen in a very long time. So they were doing a lot of great things. Um, yeah, but I haven't kept track of that. Is this a metric that I should have? How many fives I've given?
Mike, I think it's a new metric for you now.
It
Eve,
might
good
be.
job.
Yeah, I would
Thanks,
love
Eve.
to
Thanks,
know
Eve, for
because
challenging me. I
I love
appreciate
it.
that.
I love
that
it.
Mike, you don't give your
Yeah.
what's the word? You're not too, I can't figure out the word, but you're not too generous with your fives.
No, I'm not.
Love it.
But once again, as the lead examiner, and I don't always score, but when I do score, it to get a 5 out of me, you really have to knock my socks off. Let's put it that way.
Hey,
And
Micah,
has to be something I've not seen before.
Micah, here's a metric that I know you do know. And I think it's important for those that are going to go through the process or maybe or nominate others to go through the process. Everything we do is about impacts. Can you share the impact you've had or you've been tracking for the last 3 cycles
I have a
and what
slide
that's
on it.
been?
I, I
Oh,
have a
sorry.
slide. Yep, no,
Carry
that's
on
okay.
then.
I have.
Okay.
I'm going to get to that at the end. But I will say this as far as here's a metric that's more related to the scoring. Um, the average score across the board. Okay, this is a total average is about 53%. So put that into perspective. 53% is the average score for companies in here, that participate. So, I mean, if you were in school, you would all be failing, when you look at it that way, but you're really not failing. This is a tough competition. It's hard to get high numbers because there's so much opportunity within business today. Just, once again, not just manufacturing, but any business. I know, Eric, I think you guys were fourth or fifth in the total scoring. And Chris, I think you guys were also in the top 10 or just maybe barely outside the top 10 in total scoring. But, even those numbers, they were higher than the 53%, but they were still maybe around, 65 to 70. So, it's a tough scoring to get big numbers. So a little bit about the actual process. So we talked a lot about the organizational profile, talked about the scoring. Well, the scoring really occurs here or starts here with a virtual interview. Once I receive the organizational profile and you're moved into the virtual interview session, this is about a 90-minute dive into understanding the first 3 categories: leadership and strategy, customer focus, and technology and innovation. Uh, the nominees will be examined on these 3 categories by myself and by the team of examiners. I should have changed this. It's not Zoom anymore. I'm doing it through Teams. So my apologies, but it'll be through Teams. And the virtual interviews will take place between January 14th and February 27th. And we'll have a lot of virtual interviews. We'll probably have multiple virtual interviews during the course of a day. And those that are the highest percentile in your group will move on with that group. So if we have, 10 companies in group 3, only 5 of them are going to move on. Maybe 6, depending on how the scoring goes, but typically we're moving 5 companies in each group to the next phase. So the next phase, if you are in that upper percentile, you'll get an on-site evaluation. This is the finalist stage. So this is where that same team that interviewed you and virtually and myself will come in and we're going to do a deeper dive. We're going to probably validate some of the information from the virtual interview, and then we're going to go over the final 3 categories of measurement, workforce, and operations. The scores from the on-site evaluation will be combined with the scores of the virtual interview to determine your place within your group. Obviously, if you're number 1, you're going to be named Manufacturer of the Year for your respective group. The virtual interviews are going to be held from March 10th to April 30th. And I kind of want to stress the April 30th. that is a drop dead date. I cannot go past April 30th. I know things happen, but it's really important that we try to adhere to the date. Same thing with a virtual interview. We're on a very tight time frame to get all of this done, and we want to make sure that we do the best job that we can. We don't want anybody to be left out, but because of some of the things on the SFMA side that they have to schedule and so forth, we have to try to have this done by April 30th. That's the on-site evaluations. And one of the reasons is the recognition of excellence ceremony dinner. Unfortunately, that's when you will find out, as to what Eric and Chris both attested. They didn't know that they won the award until the night of the dinner. This next year, the dinner will be June 26th. It will be held at the Charles Dodge City Center in Pembroke Pines. We typically kick that off with a VIP reception where all of the finalists and examiners will be invited, early to have drinks and mingle and chat and everything. Then we'll open up a regular reception, and then it culminates with the excellence, the recognition of excellence ceremony and dinner, where the winners will be recognized. All the companies will be recognized, but the winners will get to go up on stage and collect their trophies. And also the Employee of the Year awards will also be handed out that night as well. So Matt, I will make a plug for that. I don't know when you open that process up,
Yeah.
but
Thank you, Micah. I think we're going to open it up early December. But
okay.
Yeah, yep. But yeah,
So-
it's a good point, because if you make it to a finalist position, you are in contention to win the award. So for all the companies that are going to that award ceremony, they are in contention to win. It was very possible to win. So it's a great event. We had 650 people there last year, and then we like to call it the manufacturers, not the Oscars. So it's a glorious ceremony.
Yeah, it was a great ceremony, and it's a great venue. Last year was the first year we did it at the City Center out in Pembroke Pines, and got to say that was definitely an upgrade. Oops.
Continuous improvement, right?
Yep, continuous improvement. That's right. Any questions about the scoring, the categories, anything before I start wrapping things up?
Yeah, Victor has a question.
Okay, Victor.
Yeah, I'm representing Onyx Homes, and I'm a PR guy, right? I'm not a creative of factory, so I just wanted to be sure that when you determine the facilities that can participate, that in terms of numbers and that kind of thing and employees, we have several facilities, right? This is a kind of innovative form of home building. I assume the numbers are related to all of the total numbers for all the facilities in South Florida. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I know you have two facilities, one down in around Homestead and one near Pompano. Am I correct?
That is correct. We have, the way these facilities work, often they're located right next to the site where the homes are going up. So there's more than two.
Okay. So yes, it would include all of the employees throughout, throughout the South Florida group. So if you have anything that's outside of the SFMA's 8-county region, you would not include those.
Okay, and I'll also touch base with you, with your people on the designation for Onyx Homes, which is I'm uncertain about at the moment.
Yeah,
as a manufacturer.
I can look that up. I know we have you in our system, so I'll make sure I take a look at that, and I'll talk to Matt offline about that as well. And Matt, can you mute? I don't know if it's you, but can you mute your call? I'm getting some feedback from you.
Sure.
Okay. So thanks, Matt. Yes, so I'd be happy to take a look at your NAICS code designation and see if you have one. I mean, you definitely are a manufacturer. There's no question about that. I have not had the pleasure to go into your facility yet, but I know Matt and some of the others from the SFMA team have been in there. So you definitely qualify as a manufacturer. So definitely want to make sure that you have that manufacturing NAICS code.
Thanks for that information. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Any other questions? Eve, do you see anybody? Any more questions?
No, I don't see anyone else.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Micah, if I could make one last statement because I know we're up to 12:30, but for those who are still with us, I hope you're seeing that this award. Obviously, you want to win the award, but it's also a amazing opportunity for any company to really understand how to get better, right? We all need to know where we're doing great, but we all need to know where we're not. It's the only way to improve is to understand and then act on it. So I would really encourage those that are manufacturers that are on the border of accepting or not. I would highly encourage to do that. I know, Mike, you're gonna show statistics, but it's really going to improve your operation. So I'm going to end there and get back on mute.
Perfect. It's a great segue. As I wrap things up here, Matt, I know I'm a couple minutes over, so my apologies. But to that point, why should your company participate? Well, here are the metrics that Matt had asked about earlier. Since 2022, and so I've tracked the last 3 Manufacturer of the Year awards processes. Participants have reported a total of $450 million in financial and operational impact to their organizations, as well as impacting over 1,500 jobs. This is validated through a survey that anybody who participates, even if you don't make it to the finalist stage, you will receive a survey from NIST, from the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. Either myself, it probably would be myself, since it's related to the Manufacturer of the Year awards process, or one of the other business advisors for the SFMA would come to your facility, sit down with you, go over the survey, and go over the impacts that it's had. And real quickly, I'm going to kind of go back to something that Chris Albert from Fortress said earlier. The organizational profile is an eye opener. I've heard this comment that he made several times. When you start looking at the questions just on the organizational profile, really starts, churning some questions in your own heads about, wow, why are they asking this? And why are we not doing it? So there must be something to it. So inherently, companies that read the organizational profile start making changes before they even get to the virtual interview phase. And, so it's really important that you really look at that and digest that organizational profile, because that's a perfect start to it. The other thing, I've mentioned this a couple of times about the assessment. I know Eric and Chris have both talked about the assessment. All of the data that we collect and that I collect throughout this process will be formulated into a detailed assessment. It's a written assessment. There'll be a little bit of benchmarking with your scores versus the competition, but more importantly, it's going to really detail your organization's strengths, the opportunities, and some recommendations. Excuse me. This is the real value in it, because now this is the opportunity for you as an organization to say, okay, we have all of these recommendations. Let's make these recommendations some of our strategic initiatives and start moving towards process improvement and getting better. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're thinking you're not ready, you really are ready, because you already recognize that, once again, that there are some deficiencies that you have. And what better way to get some free consultation, by having an outside group come in and take a look at everything? Because sometimes when you're living in that forest, all you see are the trees. We're going to look a little bit deeper than that. So really want you all to think about it, and no, this is not the end. This is just the beginning of a journey, and it's a journey that's never going to end. Continuous improvement of your processes is an ongoing, it's ongoing forever. So if that is all I have, folks, does anybody have any questions for me whatsoever? I'm here to answer them. Okay. Well, I think with that, I'll close it up. Matt, do you have any closing statements that you want to make? The only thing I'm going to say is I appreciate y'all taking the time today. And I really hope that for those companies that are on here that were thinking, do I want to go through this process or not? I hope this gives you, the tools to realize, yes, I need to go through this process.
Michael, one final question. I was trying to mute my microphone.
Oh, okay. No problem, Sergio.
Sorry. Yeah, the examiners. I guess the question is, the examiners come from the same group of manufacturers, or I mean, of course, you're the senior one, but who's the rest?
Yes, the examiner team, they're handpicked. I have about between 40 and 45 examiners this year in my pool. And the majority of them are manufacturers, from different, different industries. Some are partners, but they all have very solid backgrounds in manufacturing and, and process improvement experience. The one thing that I do, Sergio, and this is for anybody else that's on the call, I do share the examiner team and list with, with you prior to the virtual interview. You'll know the company, you'll know who the individual is. If there are, and I do a pretty good job at vetting it too. I don't want any potential competitors being an examiner for a company. So I try to vet those out. But if for any reason you have any questions or there's somebody there that you feel that there's a conflict with, you can always reach out to me and I will gladly replace them. That's not a problem. Just to kind of ease any concerns. But first and foremost, I do not allow competitors to go in and be an examiner, on one of those companies.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
This isn't a question for me. It's just more of a note for everyone. Just in case you, I don't know, missed out on some information, had to step out for a call. I wanted to let you guys know that we do have another information session scheduled for next month in November. It's up on the website. So do feel free to join that one, or if you want everyone else on your team to be able to get this information as well in real time and ask their questions, be sure to register for that one. That's next month. And then I'll also send out an email with the presentation and also the link to register for the event, the same event next month.
Thank you, Eve. And once again, I thank everybody for joining me today. I hope this was beneficial. And I hope to see you in the process. If you haven't been nominated, or if you've been nominated, sign up. This is a great experience. Matt, I'll let you close it out.
No, thank you, Mike, and thank you for being here. I hope so value. I wanted to close real quick. November 7th is our big annual meeting in Made in South Florida Showcase. If you haven't registered yet, you could put the event page link in the chat. But we've got an excellent lineup of companies that are going to be showcasing what they're made in here in South Florida. We've got an excellent lineup of speakers, all on our website. But if you're meaning to attend and haven't registered yet, November 1st, the last day to register. So that's next Friday. Other than that, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day,
Appreciate
everybody.
it.
Thank you.